Welcome to the Flowing State of BJJ podcast, episode number 7, White Belt Problems. I started BJJ over 20 years ago, so my take on history is a little fuzzy. Our guest today has been doing BJJ for less than 1 year, so with that fresh outlook, we address white belt problems. If you like what we produce, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Please welcome to the podcast, Kai Hussain. Kai, I think this is the third time here we are again.
Third
right?
time's the charm, though, right?
Third time's the charm, because we recorded a podcast and the sound was trash.
It was trash.
Yeah, so we had to scrap the whole podcast. But the title of the podcast is White Belt Problems, because you are a white belt
I am a white belt.
and you have some problems.
I have a hell of a lot of problems. I have every problem.
Jiu-jitsu problems only though, right?
Okay.
Okay, so before we get into your problems, one of the biggest problems that people have is even getting to the jiu-jitsu gym. So tell us your story. How did you get into jiu-jitsu?
It was through my sister's boyfriend. He had been training for about 3 or 4 years at that time, and he introduced me to it by coming down to the gym himself. He was messaging you even before I knew about it, because he comes from Bristol and then comes up to see my sister, and he just invited me down one day and I just got the bug straight away.
He was messaging just before COVID, I think it was, and then COVID happened, so he couldn't hook up.
Yeah,
And
it was a
then-
long time before we actually got the chance to come down.
And
Yeah.
actually COVID happened again. So that first session, I remember I was doing a PT on the other side of the mats. And
You was.
were with Big Kai on this side of the mats.
Yeah.
And he was just showing you some stuff, right? So how did your first session go?
The first session that I had with him when we were here, I actually thought went pretty okay, because he used to show me stuff even when we were at home
Oh, okay.
and just messing about and stuff, just jostling.
Yeah.
When I really felt it for the first time was when you got involved and when you came and joined us.
And this is interesting because Big Kai was here this weekend and he was taking a video and he mentioned the change between when you started and now, right? And talk us through that first role that you had when I came over. And I had a bit of a wrestle with Big Kai first.
Yeah.
And then you came and I was like, oh, and Big Kai was like, go on, Kai, you have a go.
So the first time that I rolled with you, and I will get you that video of it, because there is a video of it, and it's more than anything, it's pretty funny.
You sent
actually,
me, I'm
looking
sure you
back
sent me already.
I'm pretty sure I did.
You
but
have, yeah. I'll
we'll
stitch it
we'll
in.
get it up in the video, cut it in somewhere. But yeah, the first time I rolled with you, it felt like a fish out of water is the best way I could describe it.
Okay.
I remember feeling really helpless in that specific role, because even though you were playing around and taking it really nice and slow, like first time type of thing, like introductionally, I just remember thinking that I couldn't do anything, if that makes sense. Like I had no idea what to do in the first place, but even if I did have some form of an idea, I don't think I'd physically have been able to do anything about it. I just remember feeling like I was getting like moved about uncontrollably, and it was just like everything was out of my hands. And I just remember thinking that I had to come back because I didn't want to feel like that again. And I didn't even realize that people can do that and that there is this sport and things like that. And yeah, I just remember coming out of it not necessarily deflated, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do much anyways. But I remember not knowing that it was that bad, if that makes sense. And I was that far behind. Now, obviously, you've been training however many years, 16, 18 years, something like that?
Time.
A long time. But yeah, just knowing that there were people out there that could do that type of thing, I was just like, no, I have to come back and I have to at least learn something. And then from there, I got the bug.
I think that's one of the first turning points of a person's journey,
Yeah.
because that's going to happen if you haven't trained. You're gonna get, people are gonna manipulate, especially, so you came and it was just you and Big Kai and you got to roll with me.
Yeah.
But when you come and there's a class full of people who can do that to you,
Yes.
So at the end of it, you're gonna feel like, oh, what happened?
Yeah.
And then there's a fork here. A lot of people just don't want to experience that again, and they just want to forget the whole experience and pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And they want to live their life like that. There's another set of people who are like, it's never happening to me again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna learn whatever he did, so he can't do that again, and no one else can do that again. And I think that's the first decision that people need to make, because it is an ego bruiser at the start.
Yeah. It absolutely destroys your ego.
Yeah, and you just got to take it, right? It's happened to me.
Yeah.
Even to this day, I'll go to some gyms, I'll get absolutely smashed. I'll come back, and I'll be like, but that's part of the sport, right?
Yeah.
That was your first exposure to it in terms of
proper introduction.
In terms of doing it. I'm guessing you knew about it before because the UFC's exploded and all that.
Yeah, but when you watch it and when you do it, they are two completely different things.
Worlds.
Yeah, because you don't even realise how taxing it is just energy-wise. Like, even just moving like that, because it looks so minimal on TV, like the movements don't look that drastic. It's not like looking at someone playing a 90-minute game of football and running 12 kilometres in full game. It's not like that. But the amount of muscles that you use at one time for the tiniest movements, especially with that much resistance when someone's either on top or underneath you, it gets really taxing really quick.
Address the initial problem, and the initial problem is actually getting here.
Yeah.
You're here first time, and now you've made your mind up that you're coming again. When did you make your mind up that you're coming again?
I made my mind up probably the nighttime after the first roll, because I think it was the Sunday that we rolled, and then I think I came the following Wednesday, and that was when I decided that I had to keep this going.
I want you to go through that getting ready and coming, because I'm guessing that was a very nerve-wracking experience.
Yeah.
So you decide, the time, 6 o'clock, you got to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guessing you got to work.
Yep.
So you got to work. What's going through your mind? Are you thinking about it at work or not? Or?
So it wasn't that I was thinking about it at work more than I was thinking that I had to do something that I was really uncomfortable with. But I do remember feeling really nervous about it coming up on the way up, because I used to work like closer to the gym than from where I lived, and it was literally finishing work, having my bags packed, gonna walk straight up. And I remember sort of halfway walking up thinking, am I going to be able to do this? Like, do I even need to go? The whole doubts and everything like that. And because you've just got that journey just to walk up on your own, you do get in your own head sometimes, and that's just natural, especially when you're starting out at something so new. And then I think I had a misconception, because it's a martial art. I always thought that, not necessarily people that are aggressive and things like that, but certain types of people take up certain types of sports, right? And I always felt like those who took up martial arts were not necessarily unfriendly, but I always thought it was quite cliquey. When I actually came and the lads were so nice and stuff like that, and they were always so helpful, like, it eased it in straight away. But I do remember on the walk up thinking that I was just going to go in, get battered, make a fool of myself, and then never come back. And it definitely wasn't like that. It was actually the polar opposite.
So how long was it before you realized the depth of knowledge that you need? Because sitting on the other side of the fence, even as someone who's been doing this a while, I still know there's holes in my game and there's places I need to improve. But that's because I've been doing it so long. I understand the game. I have a type of game. I have a style of game. And I realize, okay, this is my A game. This is my B game. And if I really need to, I can go to this type of game. Do I prefer top? So I understand the positions, and I've through my journey, I've picked stuff. But walking in fresh, you don't even know if there is a top game, bottom game, standing, resting. You just don't know.
Exactly.
How long was it between until you realize, hang on a second, there's like an encyclopedia worth of knowledge that I need to acquire here?
So after the first session, I knew that I was going to try and stick this out either as long as I could, or at least I was going to go back for one more and one more and one more, and just try and keep it up as much as I could. I wouldn't say it was more an amount of time that made me realise. It was the amount of roles that made me realise.
Okay.
Now, because most of the lads here, they all have a different game. Like, I can name off a few people that all have a different game that they all specialise in. And it was when I rolled with the different people, mainly the different blue belts, because they all have something a little bit different.
Yeah.
That I were asking questions with them, and that's what made me realise that they like to play their A game. And then the more blue belts and the more times you roll with people, the more you realise that there's about 10, 15, 20 A games before you even start learning one. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Because they'll put you in the positions that they want, because you really don't have any control at the beginning. And when they play them games, it's like you figure out that that's a game. Does that make sense?
It does. I understand. Yeah, you understand that. Oh, this set of moves, this set of skill set, this is body type makes him do this type of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
That's exactly what it is. Like, I know that I like to play on a bottom game now if I can, but it's just that there's so many different people that do so many different things.
Yeah.
And it's never the same role twice either. Like, because it's so situational, you realise that there's so many options almost from everywhere.
So there's a lot of people start, especially because they realize how much knowledge there is, they start going to the internet and getting knowledge from the internet.
Yep.
And if there was ever a white belt problem, this is a problem. So I get loads of messages from people saying, will this work? Will this work? Will this work? And they send me Insta reels and stuff like this. So what's your experience of that?
Well, if you remember, before I had your number, I had your Instagram account, right?
Yeah.
And if you look back to the messages, because I only messaged you a couple of times on there before getting your number and asking you questions. I believe one of the first messages was how to get out of side control with what was a ghost escape pass or something like that. Like, I've been there 100 times over of just looking at information on the internet to see if you can try and bring it over in class. Now, I completely understand where you're coming from, because it depends really what you're watching and who you're watching as to whether it'll work. I think I definitely did it though. I definitely looked at all the reels, as many as I could find. I tried watching every tutorial. I researched all the biggest names and tried looking for all their information and stuff. It's helpful to sort of look at sometimes, maybe to give you an idea, but it's definitely not the be all and end all. I think it's definitely worth more training in the gym and trying what works for you.
Just so we're clear on the stance on it. I don't think there's a particular problem with it, but what you got to understand is pretty much every move you do, every technique has context behind it.
Yeah.
Person's position, whether they're going forward, back, all that sort of stuff. Now, if you look at Insta, they've only got a set amount of time, so they're just going to show you the technique.
Yep.
Is the technique BS? The majority of the time, they're legit guys.
Yep.
Showing you legit moves. They just don't have the time to show you the stuff around it. Yeah. That's where instructionals come in. And if you get an instructional from a good guy, the majority of good guys in the like, all over the world watch instructionals.
Yeah.
So where else are you going to get information from? The fact of people like BJJ Fanatics and stuff that has revolutionized, because we've got access to some of the top instructors in the world.
Yeah.
You take it to the gym, you practice it, and like, oh shit, that didn't work. Go back, watch it again. He did this. Just like you would. It's just faster in the gym.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because you get that feedback loop. You do something, you didn't see it, you call the instructor over, boom. That's where you go.
I think there's a big difference as well between seeing it for what it is and feeling it for what it is as well.
Yeah.
I think when you actually feel that situation, it's a lot more telling of whether it will work or won't work.
Yeah.
Because that's really what we're looking for when we look online, right? We're looking for like the answers to specific things that we might struggle with. And I think getting in there and actually feeling it for yourself is, I'm going to say, a little bit more valuable than just seeing it. But if you see something and then you want to like ask about it or try it, there's definitely no wrong in that. Because if it doesn't work, you just go back to step one, right?
Yeah.
You just figure it out.
So in your journey of BJJ, you've been here for a while now, and there was a point where you got injured.
Yes.
And when you got injured, it was, I'm going to say it was pretty serious, because you were out for a while.
Yeah.
And I felt at that point there was some change in your, not demeanor, change. There was a change.
Yes,
Right?
definitely.
So talk us through the injury and your mindset and what was going on.
Yeah. So to give it a bit of context, I was wrestling, stand-up wrestling, with a person, and that person seemingly seems to be made of steel, right? But what had happened really more than anything was my technique was way off, and that's what got me injured. And that left me with ligament damage on my L1 and my L2.
Did you go get it checked out?
I went and got it checked
Oh,
out.
geez, okay. I didn't know that.
The doctor was specifically shocked that I hadn't cracked my spine on my L1 and my L2
Wow,
discs.
shouldn't laugh, but
Yeah,
shit.
I know. I think any more impacts and any more drive, I think I'd have had a back crack and maybe some more serious problems. But luckily, the ligaments, they heal, right? Yeah. It does knock your confidence, does an injury.
Yeah.
It makes you more determined to go back because you want to prove yourself and you don't want to stop. And you also know that once you stop, it's really hard to get back started again. That's definitely a problem. When you actually come back and you try, you do have like a second doubt. There's more a hesitation in your game.
Yeah.
Now, before, I actually didn't mind wrestling. Now I even know, like, I'll be a little bit wary of it. So I won't necessarily take that shot if I think it's a bit risky. Like, it has to be almost like the perfect scenario, the perfect distance to even think about going for it.
Is that a matter of building your confidence back up?
Yeah, definitely. And it is hard to build your confidence back up once you are injured. But it's definitely not impossible.
Yeah.
It's just hard to break through that initial wall.
I want to talk about is about competition.
Yeah.
So as a white belt, getting into that first competition, there's a lot of doubts and a lot of self-talk which happens, right? Negative self-talk, to be specific. You enter the competition. What was the initial feeling like once you... Well, sorry. So rather than you entering, I went, Kai, you're competing. This is the day. This is the event. Let's go. And you were like, yeah, let's go. But that was external, right?
Yeah.
What happened inside once you got that message saying you're competing?
I was definitely unconfident. I think there was a baseline where I sort of already had an expectation that no matter what happens, the odds are that I'm gonna lose because I'd never had comp experience before. This is the first one. I don't know what it's like to truly go for it. Like the actual feeling of, all right, I'm actually gonna go to a comp and it's gonna be 100%. And I don't know the other person. That always creeps in, and I don't know, I definitely felt nervous about it. But because I had that baseline of no matter what, I'm going to lose anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I just need to get the first one out of the way.
Where did you get that from, that I'm going to lose? Because it didn't come from me.
No, it definitely didn't come from you. That comes more from myself. I'd probably say I see myself more as an underdog than anything else.
Okay.
And I think that's just a personality thing more than anything.
Yeah.
But I also don't mind being the underdog because I feel like when you are, there's a lot less pressure because there's a lot less expectancy.
Yeah.
So that sort of works for me, and it's like if you come up on top, it was like, well, no one really expected that. It's like fair play that you actually did, but yeah, that's the way I'd look at it.
As part of that comp prep, we did a lot of work around prep and what we're gonna do and this, that, the other. Then there was a point where you got a knee injury, and then we pulled out of the comp. So what was going through your mind then?
I remember that you'd put us in maybe a month or two before you decided to pull us out. We were maybe about a month away from the comp, and 3 months before it was when I was like entered in. And I remember thinking that I'd worried about it for 2 months, and then being pulled out was like, oh, well, I've worried for nothing type of thing. At that time, I definitely, like looking back now, I definitely wasn't ready. Plus I had the knee injury. It just definitely wasn't the right time. And looking back now, like that's definitely the right call to pull me out. But I remember at the time thinking, well, I was only gonna, going back to what I was saying before, like I was only gonna lose anyway, so you might as well have just thrown me in just to get the first one out of the way. I remember feeling a little bit deflated from that. Like looking back now, it was definitely the right decision. But I also remember it affecting my training as well. So when I first got the message to go in, nervous but determined to do well at least and like show myself in the best foot forward. So you train a little bit harder and a little bit better and a little bit sharper, and you're asking more questions, and it's not just recreational anymore. It's like it's competitive, so you want to compete. And then when you pull out of one, I remember feeling like my training had deflated, and it was not a what's the point in training then, but it was more like a why am I doing this for if I haven't got anything big coming up? That really affected my performance. I remember that because there were a couple of things that we were training for the comp. Not that I'd got the hang of like perfectly, but I definitely had a good fluid motion to, if that makes sense. What it was we were working arm bars from guard, if you remember. That was going to be the route comp, roll, like that was going to be route one, shoot for that, pull guard, go for arm bars. And actually in training, they started coming off a lot better. They were a lot more fluid. Definitely things to tweak up and finishing mechanics, etc. When I got pulled out of it, it was almost like I'd learnt nothing and I couldn't hit it at all. And that was even with people that were newer than me, people that were less experienced than me, and I just physically couldn't do it for some reason. I remember one day it happened like just after you'd pulled me out, and I remember walking off of the mats. I sat and watched for the rest of the session, but I actually went off just being like, I'm not doing this, like there's no point. I'd literally just, that chair over there, sat down there, I was like, that's it, I'm not rolling for the rest of the day, I can't bother. They sat on the other.
Threw his tantrum.
Yeah, literally threw a tantrum. I didn't want to say it, but yeah, I did. I threw a paddy. I was like, forget this, whatever. Maybe a couple of swear words in between there, but we won't talk about that. Ended up sitting down for the rest of the session, having a bit of a mum comp. That could have been a bit of a breaking point where I was just like, there's no point to doing this. I don't want to do it anymore. Just because emotionally I felt pretty bad in myself and I felt like a bit helpless again, but not determined because of that helplessness. It was just like the opposite way. I also remember you giving me a bit of a word about it, not like a stern word or anything, just being like, look, these things, they happen, you have hard times on the mats and stuff, it's not all trajectory up and stuff. And I was like, all right, fair enough, yeah. And then you'd message me saying, just come to the next session, even if you don't roll, we'll just see what happens, right? And you'd message me, and it's the only time that I've ever lied to you. But I did lie to you on that day, the next training session after, and I was just like, oh yeah, I had family stuff going on and stuff like that. Like I had other stuff to do, so I'm not going to be coming to the next session. But what that really was just me being like, I actually don't want to go. I feel a little bit embarrassed. I feel a bit deflated and stuff. And then after I'd messaged you that, you were just like, okay, no worries. And I bet you like even a half of you sort of knew that it was maybe just a little bit more than just family problems. I remember about 4 minutes after just feeling like horrifically guilty that I'd like lied and stuff. And I just felt like, well, you've lied to your coach. You're not planning on going back. Like, what have you actually done? Like, you've sort of come up to the first brick wall or like the second or third brick wall and you've stopped. I ended up just getting a taxi and coming up instead and just being like, well, I'm here now. And you was even shocked, like when I'd walked in the door to start training, I was like 15, 20 minutes later or whatever, and you were just like, thought you weren't coming. I was just like, yeah, no, I lied. I apologise, I'm here now. And weirdly, after I'd apologised, I had probably one of my best training sessions, like caught a couple of taps, felt quite good, things were flowing again. And it was just weird that from so low that I was 2 days ago, having one of the best training sessions ever. And I think that's probably, that breaking point is probably going to stick with me throughout the rest of my journey. And I know that there's going to be times where there's people that have that same moment that I do, and I'll be able to tell them that story.
As much as BJJ is physical, and at the start it's a very physical journey, like everything, all your challenges are physical. Just like anything, like driving or riding a bike, the physical stuff starts to get easier as your body gets used to it. The thing that drops people off is generally the mental. For example, a big time where people drop off a lot is blue belt. They'll get a blue belt and they're just like, the amount of people who drop off at the point of blue belt. Or the other one is a month or two after they start. Because you get this, like, it's really hard and you're getting better, and then you hit a plateau and you're just like, you have a couple of sessions where nothing happens, or you get battered again, and then you're just like, wow, what the hell? And a lot of people drop off then as well. It's the people who come up against these problems and just keep going, keep going. You don't have to be athletic. You don't have to be strong. That helps.
It does help.
You don't have to be anything else. You just have to be consistent and mentally tough. That's why they say, like, the people in combat sports who have been doing it a long time, their mental toughness is something else. Because they've hit so many brick walls and just almost bit down on the gum shield and just kept going. Yeah. Your belts are a reflection of your skill, but they're more a reflection of your gritty determination.
That's a really good way to put it. I never even thought about it like that before.
That's what's going to get you your next belt. You can acquire skill all the time. There's lots of ways to do it. We talked about online, we talked about this. There's loads of ways to acquire skill. But the people who get the next belt are the people who hit all of it. There's not a person who got a blue belt who didn't hit these walls.
Yeah, exactly. And that was like the first major time that it tested me mentally. Yeah, like you say, like it was physical first and everything was that, and I was sort of okay with that. I was definitely more used to that, so that was something that I felt before. And then the first time it tested me mentally was that moment. And I remember feeling like I'm quitting up the first hurdle, even though it wasn't really the first hurdle because of the physical, but it was the first mental hurdle. I remember feeling like, oh, well, you can't let it be that first one.
That's what makes it beautiful when you see guys who like are suddenly getting their browns and purples, and you're just like, man, I know that man's been through a lot. You know what I mean? And kudos to him for sticking it out and getting that next one.
It is like battle scars, isn't it? It's just like the amount of times that you've woke up and you don't want to go, or like something's hurting, something's aching, or something's just not flowing like what I had with mine.
What other big challenges have you had?
Injury definitely doesn't help.
No.
So the two one where I blew my knee out and the other when I blew my back out and got that ligament damage. But that's mainly because there isn't anything that you can do for that other than rest up and then start recovery.
So you say there isn't anything you can do for that. You know I'm a big believer in prevention, right?
Yes, injury prevention.
So what do I say that helps prevent a lot of that type of injury?
So I've started going to the gym, and now that I'm like, it's only been 2-3 weeks that I've started going to the gym. And it's only been like twice, maybe 3 times a week at most. So it's nothing crazy. It's no big numbers. It's no massive amount of reps or anything like that. Because it is just like starting off. Bear in mind, like I'd never done any gym, weightlifting, anything like that before. I now understand how necessary it is. Being stronger in jiu-jitsu is definitely an asset.
One of the things that I always say to the guys is that people say to me is that I'm gonna get fit and then come to jiu-jitsu.
Wrong way to look at it. But
it's very rare that then people actually turn up to jiu-jitsu, because getting fit without a reason why, without a real reason why, is particularly boring and difficult. And if you haven't done combat sports yet, your reason why isn't really a true reason why. You haven't experienced what you need. Once you get into jiu-jitsu and you're like, oh, being strong helps.
Then you have a reason to be strong, right?
Then you have a reason to be strong, and then you're like, okay, now I'm gonna go to the gym, and it might be like you are, I hate this place. I don't like it. And there's a couple of other people in the gym that are like, oh, they don't want to go to the gym. But I'm going to the gym. Because there's a reason to go to the gym. And once you find a reason to go to the gym, you'll find going there easier. Not more fun or anything like that. You'll find it easier. And then once you get strong, Kai, you'll be addicted, and we won't be able to get you out of the gym.
The gym rat. I think the best way to round that off, like to summarize it, is you will happily do something you hate to help you in something you love, right?
That's a really good way to put it.
I hate the idea of people like looking at me whilst I work out. I'm a bit like conscious of who's about. I don't really want to talk to anyone whilst I'm in a gym. Like just natural nerves of things like that.
Are them feelings of going to the gym similar to starting out in BJJ?
Practically the same. Because the same people that I think go to the gym are the same people that go to martial arts.
Kai, is it time to roll? please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share.